episode of Press Talk. Today's edition guest is going to focus on the xenophobic attacks that are happening in South Africa and the reactions of the Nigerian government and other African governments to the xenophobia attacks in South Africa. I am Victor Tehemba and I still remain your host on Press Talk. Joining me today, I'm bringing back Aisha Salihu. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
And I'm also bringing back Quest Aundu. You're still welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So we'll just go straight to the discussion, which happens to be the xenophobic attacks. Now, it's something that has not settled well with the entire African continent, especially the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government. Now, when you look at this xenophobia attack, what will you think that will be the cause for Africans being against Africans, attacking Africans?
Okay, I think this is purely a case of, would I say, self-hate? Yes, because we're all Africans. Even if we're foreigners in their country, that's Nigerians in their country now, in South Africa, it doesn't mean they have to treat us badly. I know they have the excuse of we're taking their jobs. I think some of them say we're taking their women and all of that. But I feel it's not right. It's more of self-hate, and they are not even ready to work. Because if they were ready, I feel there are jobs there for them to take. And they should hold their own government accountable, not the foreigners who are in their land seeking greener pastures, helping develop their economy, and then they're attacking us. It's really not fair. I don't know what Mr. Quest thinks.
No, but I'm still looking at the fact that if they are going to take, if they are looking about taking jobs and all of that, and then you saying that because they are lazy, they don't want to work and all of that, what if because we have a situation in this country, not in Nigeria, where foreigners are excelling in businesses in Nigeria, but locals, indigenous peoples aren't having the same measure of success in their own businesses. Now, it will seem like the working conditions are more favorable to foreigners coming into work than for the indigenous people. Could it be that this kind of case, or this is a kind of scenario that is playing in South Africa, whereby foreigners can come in and then they excel in business because maybe something works in their favor against the indigenous people of that particular country?
That's why I said they should look inwards. They should hold their government accountable. If you feel foreigners are coming and the environment is more conducive for foreigners, that's the job space now, then you should check within yourself, check what's happening, just as the case of Nigeria too. So we need to start holding our government accountable. Whether South Africa or Asian African countries apply, we should hold our government accountable rather. So I don't know.
Well, for me, I think I had an interview of a professor in a university in South Africa, a Nigerian who is a professor in the university in Nigeria, and then he made a profound statement that I totally agree with. He said that the reason he got the job that he is doing now was not because he was a Nigerian or a foreigner. He got the job because he was better qualified than all the people who applied for the job, including South Africans. I think is even the same case everywhere. Now, you mentioned the case of Nigeria. The reason certain foreigners, or expatriates as we call them, come and take certain jobs is not because the environment is favorable for them. Now, because of our environment, which I would understand and agree with you, because of our environment, there are certain things that we are not predisposed to. And so, every once in a while, as society evolves, as life evolves, certain demands are made in certain areas. And when those demands are made, because you are not exposed to those areas, you don't have knowledge, or you are not an expert in those areas, every country, every state will reach out for people who have been exposed to those things and have better experience in that area to come. Now, in the case of, I'm agreeing with Aisha in what she said, they should look inward. Because in the case of Nigeria, when this started happening, especially in the Niger Delta region, the government said, okay, we'll bring in experts or expatriates, but we'll give you a period of time, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. Within this period, you must train our own people.
Yes.
That will take over as after a while. And so you find that there's growth of our own people on the ranks, on the job, and in their experience. So over time, in every sector that expatriates were, we now have Nigerians that are
Who
excelling in
contribute
those
to-
areas. And now because demand was being made in certain areas, certain Nigerians or some Nigerians took it upon themselves to even go as far as going outside the country to learn this thing and come back and say, okay, now I am better equipped. Employ
So,
me.
which means we could just basically agree that the excuse of foreigners taking our jobs will not really count, because
Yes.
these are people who created their own jobs. So I want to go back to like 2015 or thereabout, when one of these xenophobic attacks this is sprung up in the same South Africa. One of the nationals was saying, and like he made a viral video, and he was saying foreigners are not taking our jobs. He said, for example, the car wash where he gets his car washed is being washed by somebody from Mozambique. And he said that guy, he didn't come and take it from any South African. He came there, then saw that space and
established
created it
that
for
business.
himself,
Yes.
and then was going. So it's like, and then when we just look at it, it's the issue of taking jobs, because I'm also trying to bring it back home to understand how it was played out and why, because I feel that similar things are happening in both South Africa and Nigeria,
Nigeria.
but Nigerians don't react that way, because if we complain of foreign nationals taking our jobs, we know we have people in Nigeria who travel out to maybe Canada, US, wherever, jobs that they won't do in Nigeria.
Nigeria.
They go there
They
to
get there
do
to
it.
do
Yes.
those jobs.
Yes.
And then we have people from like Togo and Benin Republic coming to Nigeria,
Cameroon.
jobs that we Nigerians refuse to do, they do, and those are the same jobs that they would rather not do in their own countries,
countries,
but they will do here. And then we look, these attacks started. South Africa should be about 25 years after independence, 25 years old after independence. This attack started in the early 2000s, and it has been a consistent something. Like it happens over and over, and it seems like it doesn't seem like the government is in the taxi support of these attacks, because it seems like if it's something that really worries them, they should have been able to find a solution to it, that it shouldn't repeat itself.
I don't know. I think their government, they are not really being proactive. Because if they were, regarding these xenophobic attacks that keep coming reoccurring, I think the people wouldn't just one day stand up and start attacking people again. If at all the government was proactive. So I don't really know how the South African government is handling this whole issue. But if they took it very seriously, like it's affecting us, you could see the retaliation in Nigeria here, how it even degenerated, some people looting and all of that. If South African government took it very seriously upon themselves and they discussed it, and then even probably made a law, or their security operatives charged them to arrest anybody who's inciting other people in South Africa there to attack foreign nationals, I think all of this would have stopped. But why is it not stopping?
So that doesn't mean that maybe the government does not care, or maybe they are not really concerned about stopping it. Like maybe it is a general feeling that maybe it's
because
a conscious
some of
feeling
their
all
government
South Africans,
officials,
including government officials.
some of their government officials keep, like according to the report I read, one said Nigerians in South Africa are drug traffickers. So are you trying to say, are you justifying the xenophobic attacks? Are you saying, okay, because you're saying Nigerians in South Africa are drug traffickers, so it's right for your people to just lynch them, attack them, and kill them, and you don't even have facts or evidence to show that actually. And I also saw some viral videos online where a South African said, I think some of them are saying it's drug related, but it was not even a Nigerian. So that started the whole thing. So I don't understand what the government official is saying. Does it mean their government is partially supporting it?
I think for me, the angle I would like to see it from is a more holistic problem, which is, I don't want to call it an African problem, because now, like you said, it started in the early 2000s, and now there is the hype about these issues when they are on the burner. Once they die down, everybody goes to bed, everybody goes to sleep, including both the victims and the people who are carrying out these attacks, including the government. And then the excuses for these attacks keep changing.
Yeah.
There's a time they said it's robbery. There's a time they said it's drugs. There's a time he said
Job related.
They're encroaching on our land,
Yes.
taking over our space, and now it's taking over our jobs. And so it keeps changing.
Yes.
I would assume that maybe the government tried to do something with regards to the one that started a long time ago, and they have fixed that area, and now there's another area cropping up. Now, but the issue with African leaders or our leaders is the fact that we do not take actions before. We are not proactive with certain decisions or certain policies to curb these things. And now, on the part of the people, you do not hold the person you are blaming. They are blaming the wrong people.
Definitely.
Foreigners are not the ones to be blamed. Your government is making jobs available that you cannot take. Hold them responsible.
That's what I'm saying.
There are people who are coming to your land to sell drugs. What are the policies of government against drug sales or drug trafficking? What are the law enforcement doing about these issues?
If
Their
these
issue-
were true,
Yes.
how come the law enforcement agencies
Have
are not
not
arresting
arrested
those
anybody.
nationals that you claim are selling drugs
I
in
would
your
even
country?
prefer, I would have even understood if the people or the nationals were saying that a foreigner who was arrested based on, drug-related crime has been released by their government, and so they are protesting
If it
to
was
say
like
yes.
this.
If it was like that, one would understand. But the government, the security agencies have not even arrested anybody, and then you're waking up to take laws into your hands to say, I don't know who is leading who. Is it the people leading the government or the government leading the people? Because in this case, I see the people leading the government by taking laws into their hands and bringing government into the picture to do their bidding and lead them from behind.
And I also saw some reports on social media where some of them were saying that even as these attacks are coming up and everything, it's as if their security agencies cannot even really curb these
Yes.
attackers, as if whether they're scared of them or they're outnumbered. I don't know.
There's this brotherliness which I don't see playing in Nigeria, but I would understand because we are the giant of Africa, so we're a more matured elder brother. But I see a situation like it happened in the old where I am your brother, so I see you fighting somebody. You are the person that is wrong, but I support you just because you are my brother. I think that's what the security agencies are doing. So you come to an attack scene, but instead of taking your citizen or your national off the scene or even arresting him and prosecuting him for doing
They
something
just
wrong,
stand there and
you
they're
stand
watching.
and watch and then blame the other person. You are the one that looked for his trouble, that's why he reacted that way,
Okay, yeah.
forgetting that the reaction itself, it's a crime.
So it seems quite interesting to also note that most of these attacks sometimes always come on the heels of when their supposed leaders make some of these inflammatory statements. So remember in a particular year, the king of Zulu, yes,
Kingdom.
made a statement like foreigners are coming to take their jobs, that they don't want foreigners, and then the few days later we saw other attacks on foreign nationals which included the Somalians, Nigerians, Mozambicans and Zambians and the rest of it. And then coming right now, within this space, we've seen 3 videos of high government officials of the South African government, one from the police deputy chief, though the video is not of recent, but it's still from a government official that when they listen to, I think it also gives them this form of incitement. And recently, yesterday, the Foreign Affairs Minister of South Africa, the South African Foreign Affairs Minister, saying that that it is a general belief, in South Africa, and that it is true. It is a general belief and it is a fact that Nigerians are the major problem in South Africa, who are selling drugs, who are engaging in human rights abuses, human trafficking, and all of that. Now, coming from government officials, and so let me not forget that of the president before he became president. He also made statements in that manner of saying people are coming to take their jobs illegally, and these people will have to leave their country and all of that. Having these statements come from leaders of this country, is it admittance on their failure that they don't know what they are supposed to do? They don't know that they are supposed to enforce certain laws or solve this problem, because I don't think foreigners are supposed to overpower the government of a particular country in any way.
Moreover, how many percent of foreigners are in a particular country per time? So if you cannot curb 50, a fraction of people who are visitors, then it already shows it's a failure on your part as
and
a
I
leader.
feel that they are making it look like the foreign nationals in their country are more in number than the citizens
I heard
of
a
the country.
statement,
So I don't
one of the viral videos that said in a particular state, 80%
in a particular
of,
city,
yes,
80%
of
are foreign
I am
nationals.
imagining a
How is
whole
that even
city,
possible?
80% of
How is that
foreigners.
possible?
Yes,
in-
no, I think in that regard, I think I would say that it's possible, because Hebrew in South Africa, for example, is known to be dominated by Nigerians. So it's like every person trying to Nigeria to go and hustle or do anything, their first place of touch is.
No, my own point here is that foreign nationals cannot be more in number in the whole
No,
of South
no,
Africa.
of course not. Of course.
Well, for me,
But
I think
really, going forward, how should other African governments, countries react? We've seen that the reprisal attacks in Nigeria was one would maybe say attributed to the fact that government did not respond to this on time. When the attacks were happening, no word from the president, and when the minister came out to say something, it was like Nigerians were going to take definite measures, which people didn't know what
the
definite
measures were.
And then the same government will say they are sending envoy to South Africa, and this didn't go well with a lot of Nigerians, because they expected, since you say you're going to take definite measures, we want to see those definite measures, until the government started taking definite measures that we could say how as those countries affected are supposed to react to South Africa.
You know, I just in the case of Nigeria, I feel there are due processes. You don't just South Africa is a country on its own. Nigeria is a country as well, a sovereign nation. So you cannot just they say two wrongs don't make a right. As much as we admit that, okay, our people are being killed there and all of that, but you don't just say because your people are being killed, the government should just are we sending our soldiers there to go and kill them, I don't know how. But
the suggestions from the suggestion from Nigerians wasn't about Nigerians sending military. Where I take those definite measures, like you say, you are withdrawing your ambassador from South Africa, you are sending their own high commissioner here, you are sending him back to his country. Yes. Then maybe for a while suspend your bilateral ties and diplomatic tie. I think this is what Nigerians were asking the government to do.
But I think some of those measures have they are playing.
They are taken, but taken late.
Yes.
Now you see, that's the issue with. I'll talk about my country, Nigeria, or I don't want to generalize it to the whole of Africa. You see, we are not proactive. Sometimes I see some of these things as places where our leaders can score, quote and unquote, cheap goals.
I agree.
Now, you see this kind of thing and you jump at it. Nigerians see that you have their interest at heart. You don't wait for two people, one person is killed, you do nothing about it. You say you're thinking of taking a measure, and then two people are killed, you are planning to take a measure. The third person is killed, you are considering sending an envoy. Then the 20 people are killed, then you now send the envoy. Then by the time 100 people are killed, you now withdraw your ambassador, and you want Nigerians to clap for you because you have now finally withdrawn the ambassador. The time to take action is at the beginning, probably even before. To curb these things.
Since now, don't forget the first time it's happening.
Don't forget that even before this whole thing went viral, there was a Nigerian celebrity who was attacked, and it was on social media. Now nobody did anything about it. He was recording when this thing happened. In fact, it was with the security agencies, and he was saying, "This is what we are suffering. This is what we are." And then I asked myself, what is the job of the foreign minister? What is the job of
the Nigerian
Diaspora Commission?
But I think the Nigerian in this Diaspora Commission came into the
she intervened.
Now, but that's my question. What was the level of intervention? If the government in question, the South African government and that of Nigeria, who is the one that is the victim in this situation, had done certain things. Now, there are certain negotiations or discussions that would have happened prior to this time, and then the government would make certain demands. Okay, do this or else we'll do this, and then we wouldn't have gotten to this. And because the South African government may not be willing to bear the cost of the consequences that are being meted out or will be meted out, peradventure this happens,
Then they call
they
their
will
people
do,
to
yes, they call their people to order and won't be in this situation. But because we wait for things to happen before we react.
Okay, I think we will come back to that just after this break. Thank you for still staying with us, and this is still the Press Talk, and we are still talking about the xenophobia attacks going on in South Africa that happened and the reactions that have trade those what? And the reactions that have trade those attacks. But before we went to that break, you were about saying something, answering the question of what other African countries should do, because that is where I was going to go next on what African countries should do. Nigeria has reacted. Zambia has also reacted.
Yes.
Madagascar has also reacted.
Yes.
Now, but the question will be how should African countries react to this thing to possibly forestall a recurrence of this?
We have several organizations, like a body where African countries come together to discuss way forward, how to move their countries forward. Like we have the African Union and the rest. So I feel in situations like this, as Africans that we all are, and although South Africa, they are our brother or sister, I don't know what I'll call them, I feel we should come together and show them and frown completely to what they're doing. Like it's unacceptable, totally unacceptable. We should come together, and just like these other countries you've mentioned now, they've started taking action. Some countries withdrew from the football match. Others are trying to pull out from whatever involvement they have with South Africa, which is a good thing, because that shows solidarity and the unity amongst other African countries. Let them know that we're not okay with this. You don't do this to your brother just because you feel something is wrong, instead of you to look within yourself and hold yourselves accountable to whatever situation is going on in your country. So I feel there should be more collective response from all African countries, supporting the countries, the nationals, the foreign nationals that are in South Africa that are affected, supporting them and letting them know, okay, we're not with South Africa on this, and we're going to lend a hand of help to you, whatever way you need us to come to your aid, in whatever way you need us to come to your aid.
I also think that in terms of policies, the pressure should be on the government of South Africa to make policies that would ensure that these kind of things do not come up. It is better for foreign nationals to be arrested for crimes, prosecuted and deported, or made to leave, or other measures taken that are legally or lawful, other than all this. And I like what the countries you mentioned are doing. It shows that, because when countries or nations outside of Africa do Africa wrong, there's a procedure we'll go to. We unite and speak against it. And then for other African countries who are residents or doing business in South Africa, who may not even be affected with the one that just happened, speaking up to speak against it. And then, just like she said, we have a father, so to say, the African Union.
So if you're looking at
strong statements should be made.
So we're looking at countries are beginning to react. So just like we have rightly mentioned, and all that. And in fact, Zambia Transport Association, we are saying that South African drivers will not ply their roads again. So it means once they get to the border, they have to employ a Zambian driver to drive. Now, if countries begin to isolate South Africa, begin to withdraw from whatever ties they would want to have with South Africa, and then they begin to withdraw from those engagements, this is going to isolate Africa. And if we're going to have a continent whereby there's going to be a black on black, African on African violence attacks, what are the implications of this for the free trade agreement act, after act that they signed just recently, that all African countries signed.
Okay, let me come in a little. You know, these measures, they are not, it's not like it's going to last forever. It's just to send a message to them, a sound of warning, like, you keep doing this, this is totally unacceptable. Don't do this again, else more sanctions will be meted on you. So it's not going to be, it's not a prolonged something. So I feel it's just going to be temporary.
So it is not going to have any implication on the after agreement that has been signed?
No. I think for a period it will.
It will.
Because you need to be told that there are consequences.
Yes.
Those consequences, you need to feel those consequences and take
Let it
corrections. Let it
economy.
affect your economy, which is already doing. Let it affect your economy. Let it affect your relationship with your friends, your brothers from other. Let it be known that there are consequences, so that other people. Because don't forget that we are not just. It's not just Africa in South Africa that other foreign nationals. We are a body. The whole world is interconnected. We do trade together. We travel for holidays. We do a lot together. No country.
It's an island.
It's an island and can be isolated.
Okay, so let's look at this again. Now, outside Africa, aside South Africa that has been consistent in carrying out xenophobic attacks on Nigerians, we've also found out that there have been cases in Ghana of Ghanaians asking Nigerians to leave, and in fact, there is a government policy that Nigerians cannot engage in retail businesses in Ghana, for example. And then we also had cases of where there's like a coordinated violence against Nigerians in other parts of Africa and around the world. And you know, we always have these issues of Nigerians are this, Nigerians are that. Is the Nigerian people in other countries a problem?
For every society or for every nation, there are people, there are the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we cannot, on the basis of the few bad eggs, judge everybody. Now, even in the case of South Africa,
the case is, if we have cases where indigenous nationals are having problems with Nigerians in Ghana, having problems with Nigerians in South Africa, having problems with Nigerians in Egypt, having Nigerians in Tunisia, the UK, the US, like that, does this say that we are a few bad eggs? Because the Nigerian, what they would term problem is also in faraway Asia. You could have it in Dubai. We've had cases of when armed robbers, where some young Nigerians went to rob, and just recently we also have that of 4 women who robbed somebody. So it's like in that country, so Nigeria is also trying to Nigerians are also trying to create a reputation that is not palatable to the image of the country. So looking at all of this, even inside Nigeria, we say the good ones are more than the bad ones.
Okay, I think this would bring me to the point where I'd say, just like he rightly said, there are a few bad eggs within and outside Nigeria. And I feel, like I rightly said, even to the South African government, that South African people and their government to look within. We should also, as Nigerians, we should try to solve our own problems. I know we have a lot of issues in the country right now. There's a case of poverty, unemployment, little or no healthcare system, and educational issue, a lot of issues. But I feel if we, on our own, identify these problems and look for the way forward, the crime rates, the ones that are being perpetrated in our country and also other countries that you mentioned, I feel they'll reduce. And those people who are there would not even see the need to remain there. They'll just come home and then change their ways. So I feel we should, just like I rightly said, we should also identify these problems, and we shouldn't take to crime. Look at now, these xenophobic attacks are happening in South Africa, and in a bid to carry out reprisal actions here, we are looting stores, stores that are not even owned by South Africans. So, meaning, are we using it as an opportunity to commit crimes, or there's a lot of problems. Nigeria as a country, we have our own problems.
So it is an acknowledgement that Nigerians are a problem.
I wouldn't totally agree that Nigerians are a problem. A few Nigerians have...
Are there a few Nigerians?
Yes, there are.
So if, for example, you go to South Africa, for example, and before you count the 10 good ones, you are able to count like 100 bad ones.
I would
So,
agree.
so when you look at that ratio, does it say that there are a few bad Nigerians?
I think in the end, or at the end of the day, you will find that evil is more publicized than good.
Of course.
So
What if
there are
it's
10,
when evil is happening more?
I
than
wouldn't
good?
say evil is
I would not
happening
agree
more.
with that.
There are Nigerian surgeons that are doing very well.
Yes.
So, by
you
the
don't
time
get
you-
to
you
hear
don't
about
get to
this.
hear about them.
That's what I'm coming to say. For example, okay, let's say in the US we have Nigerian surgeons who are doing well.
Yeah.
So before you count 20, we already have 77 Nigerians that have been arrested for fraud.
Now we have 77 Nigerians that have how do you put it now, have been arrested for fraud over a period of time.
Yes.
Not 77 bad Nigerians clocked in one place and suddenly arrested. Now, I will not assume that. See, let's not forget the fact that, just like she rightly mentioned, even in Nigeria, now, let's not forget that even in Nigeria, we have foreign nationals that are perpetrating evil
I was going to say that.
on a daily basis. Now, but because of our system, these things are not even publicized the way they should. And so it now looks like we are the ones. Now, Nigeria is the giant of Africa. And so the eyes of the world, or the eyes of everybody,
It's always on us.
it's easy to find, it's easy to see an elephant passing than to notice an ant that is strolling past you or even climbing your body. So it is obvious most times. It's easier
So
to
when
see.
we say Nigeria a giant of Africa, what makes Nigeria a giant of Africa?
Well, it's a title.
Yeah.
And it's a title
So how
that
do you merit a title?
no, let's assume there was a time we were actually giants.
Yes. I guess
And you
we're
see-
still living on past
Yeah,
glory.
we're living on past glory. We have not our size has not shrunk, so we are still giants, but we are helpless giants.
So on a final note,
Yeah.
Nigeria pulled out of the World Economic Forum going on in Cape Town, South Africa. Nigeria was not going to participate, but we found out that a former minister of education, who is also a world-renowned economist, Obi Ezekwesili, attended that event in her own personal capacity, and they were backlash. And in fact, the person that made the announcement that she would be going there was an aide to the president. Now, Nigerians turned against her, like Nigeria put out of this contract. So the country that you are loyal to, the country that you owe your allegiance to, put out of this conference. Why should you as a Nigerian also attend that conference? But later it turned out that 3 other Nigerians, reputable Nigerians, such as the recent governor of Kaduna State,
Yes.
El-Rufai,
And
the
governor of
governor of
Ekiti
Ekiti State,
State,
Kayode
Fayemi.
Fayemi,
Yes.
and the emir of Kano,
Kano,
were also in
Sanusi.
attendance, but their names did not come out until like the first day of the forum. So now looking at this, is it right for an individual in their own capacity to attend a forum that the country has decided to withdraw from?
Well, it might. For me, there are two sides to it.
Yeah.
The side of Obi Ezekwesili and the side of I want to call them a delegation, but we'll get to that. Now, she couldn't have gone there in her own personal capacity. For me, as in my own personal opinion, I feel in solidarity with your nation, even if you do not agree with what your state or your country is saying, but to show solidarity. Now, she even put her life at risk as an individual. Now, it's like saying there's a war going on there, and your country is saying no, we can't go there, or we don't want to show some level of this satisfaction about something, and you go there. What happens if something wrong happens? Who do you hold accountable? Who do you hold responsible? Who do you run back to? So I totally do not agree with her decision to honor their invitation or go there in whatever capacity. But then you now find that, just like we will complain about government officials making statements to incite the people, government officials under the same government that said we are pulling out of a system are now being found to have gone
To attend
so
the same forum?
to attend the same forum, which now waters down whatever criticisms would have given to Ezekwesili. Because at the end of the day, it looks like saying that, yes, as a nation, it's like a father saying, I am not going, but I will send my son. What does that say? Because those people could not in any way have attended that conference or that forum in their own personal capacities, especially that they are government officials, high-ranking government officials in their country. And now, this is what I was saying. if for real those people went in whatever capacity that is not in any way connected to this government, then consequences should be meted out for people to know that these people disobeyed and went there on their own, and these are the consequences. If not, tomorrow we'll have a situation where the government will be saying one thing and people will vehemently wake up and do the other thing.
So when we look at Obi's presence at the World Forum, she argued that it was a platform for her to register her displeasure, to contribute her own quota to the solution, to finding a permanent solution so that her people, as she puts it, won't continuously be killed in South Africa. And we saw videos of her when she was talking, and then she made some useful contribution. Now, despite those useful contributions, despite those useful arguments, will it still be wrong to criticize her attendance?
Now, this is my own argument. Are you in a capacity? Do you have the capacity to speak for your nation? No.
But for her to be invited to the forum, it means she has some sort of influence that if she has to speak out, can have some weight.
Now, first of all, still speaking my opinion. First of all, that forum is not the forum to discuss xenophobia. Yes. It's an economic forum. Yes. Now, whatever you say in that forum, what are the chances that it will be implemented or used?
Or it would even matter.
So
long as it's not even it's related like to why you were invited.
You were invited in the first place. Because even if she made valid contributions, it's like we're talking about something and I make a valid contribution about something else. It doesn't count. So I think if the country had said we're not going, nobody should have gone.
All right then. So I think that brings us to the end of today's press talk. But we'll have to do this again next week, and I have to appreciate your coming, Mr. Questa Aundu, for always being on standby to honor the invitation. And Aisha Saliu, thank you for always having to drag you from your office down here. And thank you for staying with us. And for me, Victor Tehemba, it's good night.
Or good whatever.